The office was quiet that early morning, the hum of the servers filling the space like a constant heartbeat. I leaned over my workstation, scanning the latest data logs, eyes trained on anomalies, even the smallest inconsistencies. After the near catastrophe I survived last month, a malicious code bomb that nearly erased years of my research, I wasn't taking anything for granted. Victor had left for a board prep meeting, promising me everything was on track for the final review. Normally, I trusted him. He'd been my partner in countless projects, but after what happened, I couldn't. Not anymore. Not with the knowledge that one careless, or deliberate, line of code could ruin everything I had built. I opened the historical audit logs, my fingers moving with practiced precision. Each dataset, each update, each patch. I checked them all personally, cross-referencing them against my own records. Something deep inside whispered that I would find more than mere discrepancies. I just didn't know how deep the betrayal would run. Hours passed as I combed through the logs. At first, everything seemed routine, updates, bug fixes, minor tweaks, but then a tiny pattern emerged, almost imperceptible, lines of code that didn't match the normal progression. They were subtle, hidden in the framework like a whisper in a crowded room, but my gut screamed that they were deliberate. I paused, leaning back in my chair, feeling the weight of possibility pressing down. Could Victor? No, I told myself. I had to be careful with suspicion. But the more I traced the code, the more I realized the lines weren't just errors. They were calculated, designed to fail. A chill ran down my spine. I could almost see it. The board meeting, the projector flickering, the software collapsing, my name dragged through the mud, and Victor and his ambitious rival, Zara, stepping in with their solution. My work, repackaged, claimed as their own. I felt a spark of anger mixed with fear, but underneath it all, a strange clarity. This near destruction had forced me to see the vulnerabilities I'd ignored. My trust had been exploited, my career almost obliterated, and yet here I was, alive, aware and determined. The rebirth was subtle at first, a renewed commitment to vigilance, to integrity, to ensuring nothing could compromise my work again. I whispered to myself, almost as a vow, I will protect this research. I will see the truth. And I will not be erased. I copied the suspicious code into a separate secure folder, labeling every line, every alteration, with meticulous care. Whoever was responsible would not succeed, not while I was watching, not while I was alive, and certainly not while Reese Kean, my closest and most protective colleague, was at my side. As I closed the logs for a moment, my fingers hovered over the keyboard. The thrill of discovery and the clarity of purpose surged through me. This wasn't just about work anymore. It was about survival, integrity, and reclaiming control. And I was ready to act. I stared at the lines of code, my stomach nodding as the realization hit me. Victor hadn't made a mistake. He had orchestrated this. Every subtle anomaly, every misaligned algorithm, every corrupted data packet was intentional. He had been systematically introducing malicious code into our project over the past year, a slow, almost invisible poison designed to implode at the worst possible moment. I leaned back in my chair, taking a deep breath. How could he? We had been partners, collaborators, even friends. I had trusted him implicitly, shared every dataset, brainstormed every solution together, and he had been quietly plotting my professional undoing. The logic of it all was horrifyingly elegant. If the code executed during the board presentation, it would trigger a cascade of failures, crash the system, and discredit me entirely. And while I would be scrambling to explain or fix the disaster, Victor and Zara would swoop in, offering the corrected solution, my research, repurposed and claimed as theirs. My years of work, my reputation, erased in one fell swoop. I ran a simulation in a controlled environment, isolating the malicious segments. The results confirmed my fears. The failure wasn't hypothetical. It would have been catastrophic. My research would have been questioned. The project would have appeared flawed, and Victor's plan to take credit would have succeeded. A mix of fury and exhilaration coursed through me. Fury at the betrayal, at the audacity, at the sheer cruelty of it. Exhilaration because I had found it before it was too late. The rebirth I had felt after the near-catastrophic data loss was now fully realized. I was awake, alert, and ready to protect what was mine. I knew I couldn't handle this alone. Reese Kean's CTO, colleague, and someone who had always been fiercely protective of the team, was the only person I could trust with this level of evidence. I contacted him immediately, summarizing the situation without panicking, emphasizing the urgency. "Juno." Reese's voice was steady but sharp over the call. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't touch anything else. We'll lock it down." Minutes later, Reese arrived, his presence grounding. I walked him through every line, every anomaly, every subtle insertion Victor had made. He listened intently, occasionally nodding, occasionally frowning. I could feel his protective instincts kicking in. This was no longer just my fight. "We'll secure the system first," Reese said, determination in his voice. "Then we'll expose Victor and Zara. They'll never see this coming." As we began isolating the malicious code and creating a secure lockout, I felt something new stirring between us, not just camaraderie, but a quiet, unspoken trust. Here was someone who had my back completely, someone who would fight beside me to protect not only my work but also me. For the first time in months, I felt empowered rather than panicked. Victor's betrayal had been intended to destroy me, but instead, it had forged a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't just surviving, I was preparing to reclaim my work, my integrity, and my future. And with Reese at my side, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. The hum of the servers felt louder than usual as Reese and I worked side by side. Every keystroke, every command, every line of code we examined had the weight of urgency. Victor's sabotage was subtle, almost invisible to anyone who wasn't trained to detect it, but I had seen it. And now, with Reese coordinating our response, we had the power to stop it before it destroyed everything. "We need to isolate the malicious segments completely," Reese said, eyes scanning his monitors. His voice had that familiar edge of authority I had always respected. "Once we quarantine them, no one can trigger them accidentally or deliberately." I nodded, my fingers moving swiftly across the keyboard, running scripts to identify every corrupted module, every insertion Victor had made over the past year. The scope of his betrayal was staggering, but each discovery fueled my resolve. He had underestimated me, assumed I would blindly trust him, and assumed Zara's ambition could shield him. They were wrong. As we worked, Reese leaned over my shoulder, pointing to a cluster of code. "See this?" Victor tried to disguise it as a minor patch, but the logic doesn't match the progression. If this executes during the board demo, it would have been catastrophic. I felt a chill run down my spine, but also a strange exhilaration. For the first time since the near disaster that had almost wiped my research, I felt fully alive. I wasn't just defending my work, I was reclaiming it. Hours passed in a blur of analysis, cross-checking, and code isolation. With each confirmed line of malicious code quarantined, the system became safer, stronger, unassailable. Reese glanced at me, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "You've got nerves of steel, Juno, and meticulous instincts. I'd trust you with any system on the planet." My chest warmed at the compliment, and I felt the subtle undercurrent of something more, something neither of us needed to name yet, but which hung between us like an electric current. His presence was grounding, protective, and comforting in ways I hadn't realized I craved. Finally, we implemented a full system lockdown. All remaining access points were secured, permissions tightened, and every potential exploit monitored in real time. Victor's sabotage had been neutralized, but the real challenge remained, exposing him and Zara before the board presentation. "Now comes the fun part," Reese said, leaning back with a glint of determination. "We feed the board a clean, verified system while simultaneously revealing the sabotage. Victor and Zara won't see it coming." I felt a thrill run through me. Justice was about to be served, and I would be at the center of it, not as a victim, but as a force to be reckoned with. The fear I had felt after the malicious code bomb had been replaced by clarity and purpose. I wasn't just reborn, I was ready. And as Reese's hand briefly brushed mine while handing me the final security report, I felt a spark of connection, a quiet promise that we weren't just fighting for data integrity. We were building something more: trust, partnership, and perhaps something deeper. The countdown to the board presentation had begun, and with our lockdown in place, I knew we were ready. Victor's plan had failed before it even began, and the path to exposure and my vindication was clear. The boardroom was tense, the air thick with expectation. Executives sat around the polished table, their eyes shifting between Victor, Zara, and me. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, but the fear I once carried had transformed into focus. I knew every line of code, every safeguard, every contingency. I was ready. Victor smirked, exuding false confidence as he began the presentation. As you can see, our project is performing flawlessly. Juno's team has done exceptional work, though naturally, my oversight has ensured stability. I felt a flash of anger, but pushed it down, channeling it into precision. Reese leaned close, whispering, "Stay calm. Follow the plan. We're revealing everything." Minutes later, the first slide appeared, a visual demonstration of the project's framework, annotated with data flow and integrity checks. I took a deep breath and clicked to the next slide, a detailed log of the manipulated code Victor had inserted over the past year. A murmur spread through the room. Victor's smug expression faltered. "I don't know what you're." I held up a hand, letting my voice carry over the room. Victor has been deliberately inserting malicious code into this project to create a catastrophic failure during this very presentation. Every line has been documented, isolated, and neutralized. Reese and I have verified every element. Zara's eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to protest, but Reese's calm, authoritative voice cut through. "The evidence is clear. All anomalies were intentional, and this was a coordinated attempt to discredit Juno and claim her work as your own." I felt a surge of vindication, the weight of betrayal beginning to lift. The executives leaned in, scanning the logs, asking questions. Each piece of evidence we revealed, each timestamp, each code comment, made Victor and Zara smaller, their confidence dissolving. Victor's face reddened. "This is preposterous. I've overseen this project for years. Juno couldn't possibly." I didn't flinch. "She did more than oversee, Victor. She built this. Every line, every algorithm, every innovation is mine. And this board will see the truth." By the time Reese displayed the clean, fully secured project running flawlessly, the room's energy had shifted entirely. Victor and Zara were exposed, their scheme unraveling in real time. Their faces, once smug, were now masks of panic. I glanced at Reese, and our eyes met. There was pride, relief, and something unspoken connection. In the midst of professional vindication, I realized how much I trusted him, how much his presence had strengthened me through every threat. The board applauded the integrity of the project, acknowledging our work and the sabotage that had been narrowly prevented. Victor and Zara were immediately suspended pending investigation, and the executives turned to me, their expressions a mixture of respect and admiration. After the meeting, Reese walked me out, his hand brushing mine. "You did it, Juno. You not only saved your work, you exposed the truth. They never had a chance." I smiled, feeling the rebirth fully settling in my chest. "We did it," I corrected, squeezing his hand. "Together." And as we stepped into the sunlight outside the boardroom, I knew this was only the beginning of securing my career, my integrity, and perhaps a life with Reese by my side. The office was unusually quiet after the boardroom storm had passed. Victor and Zara were suspended pending further investigation, their schemes laid bare for all to see. The air felt lighter somehow, as if the tension that had bound me for weeks had finally been lifted. Reese stayed close as we reviewed the aftermath of the board presentation. Our screens displayed logs of the quarantined code, detailed reports of Victor's sabotage, and the security measures we'd implemented to ensure nothing similar could happen again. For the first time in months, I felt in control of my work and my life. "You handled that brilliantly," Reese said, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my chest tighten. Every step was precise, methodical, and fearless. I laughed softly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear. I had a very good partner, I said, letting my hand linger near his. There was a warmth there, a comfort that was new, yet familiar, reminding me of late nights spent debugging systems together, trusting him with more than just code. He leaned against the edge of my desk, eyes never leaving mine. It's more than just the technical work, Juno. You stayed calm when everything could have fallen apart. That takes courage, strength, and integrity. I felt a blush rise to my cheeks, and for a moment, words failed me. I had spent so long defending my work, defending myself, that I hadn't allowed space for anything else, especially not someone like Reese, who had quietly protected me through every crisis. I couldn't have done it without you, I admitted finally, my voice soft but steady. You were there every step of the way, watching my back, trusting my decisions, keeping the system secure. I don't think I realized how much that mattered until now. Reese's expression softened, and he stepped closer. Juno, I've always had your back, professionally and personally. And now, I want to be here for more than just work. You've earned that trust, that connection, and I hope you feel the same. My heart skipped, but I smiled. I do, I whispered. I trust you. Completely. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to lean into that trust. Reese's hand brushed mine, lingering, and I felt the tension between us shift, professional respect transforming into something deeper, something intimate. It wasn't just a spark, it was a foundation. We stayed there for a while, reviewing final reports, but the atmosphere had changed. There were smiles between us now, laughter at small jokes, and quiet moments of shared understanding. The professional victory was sweet, but the personal connection, that was exhilarating in a way I hadn't expected. Later, as we walked out of the office together, the city lights reflecting off the glass buildings, Reese slipped his hand into mine. It felt natural, right? As if it had been meant to happen all along. We've survived sabotage, betrayal, and almost losing everything, I said, smiling up at him. And yet here we are, standing stronger than before. He squeezed my hand gently, his voice low and tender. And this is just the beginning, Juno. Together, we can face anything. Not just at work, but in life. I looked up at him, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with servers or data logs. Then let's do it, I said, letting my fingers intertwine with his. Together. For the first time since the digital chaos had nearly destroyed me, I felt whole, not just professionally, but personally. The rebirth was real, and with Reese at my side, it felt like the start of something enduring, honest, and full of promise. The office was buzzing with activity, but I felt a quiet calm inside. Victor and Zara's sabotage had been exposed, and the legal and HR teams were moving swiftly to finalize their termination and investigate any potential damages. The relief was almost intoxicating. After weeks of tension and fear, the weight of uncertainty was finally lifting. Reese stood beside me, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. All the follow-up reports are being filed, he said. Everything is airtight. There's no way anyone can question the integrity of your work now. I exhaled slowly, feeling the tension in my shoulders ease. It's surreal, I admitted. All the stress, the sleepless nights, and now it's done. Finally. He smiled, and there was something in that smile that made my heart skip. You didn't just survive it, Juno. You turned it into a triumph. You exposed deception, protected the project, and ensured the board and the world can trust the work you've done. I felt a warmth spread through me at his words, more than just professional praise. Reese had been there through every step, watching my back, supporting me when I doubted myself, and never letting me face the chaos alone. And now, standing beside him, I realized the bond we shared had deepened into something I couldn't ignore. I couldn't have done any of it without you, I said, my voice soft, almost vulnerable. You kept me grounded when everything could have spiraled out of control. You really mattered, Reese. His hand brushed mine, lingering. You mattered to me, Juno. From the beginning. Watching you face this betrayal, Seeing your determination, it made me realize something important. I looked up at him, heart racing. What? That I don't just want to protect your work, he said quietly. I want to protect you. And not just professionally. Personally, too. The words hit me like a jolt. My chest tightened, and I felt a flutter of hope. I had spent so long rebuilding my career, reclaiming my integrity, and surviving betrayal that I hadn't allowed myself to consider anything else. But looking at him now, I felt the trust and connection between us in a whole new way. I feel the same, I admitted, letting my fingers brush against his. I trust you completely, Reese. And I want this too. He smiled, a mixture of relief and affection in his eyes. Then we'll face the future together. Every project, every challenge, every success, together. We leaned into each other, sharing a quiet, lingering kiss that spoke of trust, admiration, and something deeper. A bond forged through trials, strengthened by truth, and built on mutual respect. The hum of the office faded into background noise as I realized that the rebirth I had feared I might never fully embrace had arrived, not just as a professional triumph, but as a personal awakening. With Reese by my side, I had reclaimed control of my work, my integrity, and my heart. And as we walked out of the office later, hands intertwined, I felt the future stretching ahead, bright, secure, and full of promise. Together, we were unstoppable. Together, we had survived, and together, we would thrive. The city lights reflected off the glass walls of the rooftop lounge, twinkling like stars as Reese and I stepped onto the terrace. After weeks of tension, chaos, and near disasters, we finally had a moment to breathe. Victor and Zara's downfall was complete, the project's integrity secured, and our work validated. I sipped the champagne Reese handed me, savoring the quiet triumph. It still feels unreal, I said, looking out at the skyline. All the sabotage, the lies, and now it's over. Finally. Reese smiled, his eyes never leaving mine. You earned this, Juno. Every bit of it. You were brilliant, precise, and unwavering. I've always admired that about you, but seeing it in action, I can't tell you how proud I am. A warmth spread through me at his words. More than professional pride, it was personal, deep, and comforting. I realized how much his presence had steadied me, how much I had leaned on him, and how much I wanted to continue doing so. You know, I said, a teasing edge in my voice, I think I finally get why people say a good partner is priceless. I've had one all along, and I didn't even realize it. His laugh was soft, intimate. I guess I've been obvious then, huh? I chuckled, feeling the tension between us shift into something lighter, more playful. A little, but maybe it took surviving a near career-ending betrayal for me to notice. Reese stepped closer, closing the space between us. I don't just want to be obvious, Juno. I want to be here for everything. The work, the chaos, the victories, and you. My chest fluttered as I absorbed the weight of his words. I had spent so long focused on my career, on safeguarding my research, on surviving sabotage, that I hadn't allowed myself to consider what I truly wanted. Now, looking at Reese, I realized the answer had been in front of me all along. I want that too, I admitted softly, letting my fingers brush his. I trust you, Reese. Completely. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining effortlessly. The city around us faded as we shared a quiet, lingering kiss, a promise, a celebration, and a relief all at once. It wasn't just romance. It was recognition that we had survived the storm together and were ready to face the future united. We pulled back, smiling at each other. So, Reese said, his tone light but full of meaning, what's next for us? I leaned into him, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in months. We live, I said simply. We build. We protect what matters, and we do it together. Reese nodded, brushing a stray lock of hair from my face. Together, he echoed. The night stretched ahead, full of promise. I knew challenges would come, projects would demand attention, and the world would continue to test me. But with Reese by my side, I felt prepared, confident, and most importantly, reborn. The chaos had forged me into someone stronger, wiser, and more aware of what truly mattered. And now, as we watched the city lights shimmer below, I knew I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving, protected, and loved. The rebirth was complete, and this time, I wouldn't let anything take it away. The morning sun streamed through the windows of our office, reflecting off the polished surfaces and the rows of monitors that now hummed with security and stability. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the weight of fear or betrayal pressing down on me. Victor and Zara had been terminated, legal proceedings were underway, and our project was fully secured. Every line of code, every database, every algorithm I had worked on was safe. I leaned back in my chair and let out a long breath, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. Reese came in moments later, carrying 2 cups of coffee, and set one beside me with a smile that made my chest tighten in the best possible way. "Morning," he said, his eyes glinting with warmth. "Sleep well." I laughed softly. For the first time in forever. And not just because I'm not panicking about malicious code. I glanced at him, feeling the familiar flutter of connection. It feels complete. Everything we fought for, all the chaos, it's behind us now. Reese leaned against the edge of my desk, sipping his coffee. "You made it complete, Juno. You were brilliant, relentless, and meticulous. Without you, none of this would have been possible." I felt a warmth spread through me, more than just professional pride. Reese had been my anchor through every crisis, my protector, and someone who had quietly watched over me, making sure I could face the storm. Now, standing beside him, I realized how deeply I trusted him and wanted to be with him, not just as a colleague, but as a partner. "I couldn't have done it without you," I admitted softly. "You kept me grounded, protected me when I doubted myself, and never let me face the chaos alone." His expression softened, and he stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. "Juno, I don't just want to protect your work. I want to be here for you. Always. Professionally, yes, but also personally." My heart fluttered. I had spent so long focused on rebuilding my career, safeguarding my research, and surviving betrayal that I hadn't allowed myself to think about love. But now, looking at him, I knew exactly what I wanted. I feel the same," I whispered, letting my fingers intertwine with his. "I trust you completely, Reese. And I want this too." He smiled, that tender, reassuring smile I had come to adore. "Then we face the future together," he said, drawing me close. "Every challenge, every success, everything." Our kiss was gentle, deliberate, and full of promise, a culmination of trust, shared struggles, and a deep connection forged in the fire of chaos. In that moment, I felt not just love, but a profound sense of rebirth. I was no longer defined by betrayal, fear, or near disaster. I was defined by resilience, integrity, and the person I had chosen to become. Later, as we walked through the office hand in hand, I felt a clarity I had never known. The project was secure, justice had been served, and my life, professional and personal, was finally aligned. The rebirth I had feared I might never fully embrace had arrived. With Reese by my side, I was prepared for anything. We had survived, we had thrived, and we were ready to build a future together. Honest, secure, and full of love. And for the first time, I felt completely, undeniably whole.